There it is.
All right, boys and girls, we are live. My name is Rob from Rob's School of Music, and I am joined by my Record Talk co-host, Mr. Brian, and we have the legend,
Yes.
Mr. Christopher Thorn, hanging with us today for Blind Melon and many other magical things. So we're gonna talk.
Yeah, man. What's up, guys?
How's it going? Dude,
Oh, great.
we didn't get a chance to say I'm a huge fan of Blind Melon. It's one of my favorite bands since you guys came out. And just it's been a whirlwind, it ending and then kind of this rebirth. We were so pumped when he had called me and he's like, "Do you hear the news?" I'm like, "News about what?" He's like, "Blind Melon's back together." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Man, it's been incredible, especially with some of the new stuff you guys have been releasing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's on repeat. It's on constant repeat.
That's great, man. Yeah, it feels good. It's like those guys are my brothers, and it just feels good making music with your brothers. So, obviously we have an incredible history. So, and Travis has been with us now for so long. He doesn't feel like the new guy anymore. That's for sure. So,
right. The last time I saw you guys, I don't know if it was a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago in Chicago. What a killer set! You guys were so tight. It was just magical. It was the best way to describe it. Was just magic. It was just
thanks. Where did we play? Where did we play in Chicago?
Oh man, where was it?
Was it the Metro?
Yes.
Metro.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, was it the Metro?
Metro, Double Door. What else is around?
Double Door. It was the Double Door. Wasn't it?
Great places. We love Chicago. Have always had great shows there.
Yeah, the energy was just insane between the crowd and you guys and the after show, just hanging out. Everybody, it was incredible. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll tell you, dude, that actually segues into a fantastic first question. So, like we rehearsed that. Not. So, being a school, a lot of our students are younger in their musical journey, and stage fright is a huge thing. And back when we could do shows, we would always put them into places where they could perform live. I think playing music live is the greatest expression and the coolest. My favorite place is doing that. Do you have any tips for overcoming? I mean, you've been on some stages I can't even fathom in my mind. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, I always had to kind of, it's not that I'm creating somebody I'm not, but it's definitely, this person doesn't get on stage. It takes me a minute to be a bigger version of myself, to be on stage. And it took me a long time to crack that code because, I used to just get nervous and feel awful. But at some point I don't know. You just start to figure out, for me, I'm one person, but the second I walk to the stage, a different guy shows up for me.
Yeah.
To get to the stage, I got to be a different guy to get to the stage. I'm, shy as fuck, and I don't, want anyone looking at. I'm that guy. I don't want anyone looking at me. But when I walk to the stage, I become a different person. You know what I mean? It's still me, but it's just, I don't know. It's almost like a different character of myself that's bigger and better than I am. And we had to learn that, Blind Melon, before we even had a record out, we're playing stadiums with Guns N' Roses to 100,000 people. So coming from playing clubs and playing to 50 people, you can play guitar like this to 50 people because they can see every little nuance. But when you're playing to 100,000 people, suddenly you realize you just got to be bigger. You're trying to create a bigger presence on a stage that is so fucking giant you could barely see the other side of it. So I had to figure out how to just be a bigger, bolder version of myself, and you got to crack that code sooner than later. You really do. We were thrown into it because, we had been playing clubs and went right to stadiums immediately with Guns N' Roses in Mexico, playing to 100,000 people a night. So we had to figure out real quick, So for me, I say to people, imagine you're somebody else if that helps you get to the stage. You know what I mean? If you want to be Keith Richards, fucking put something around your head and be like Keith Richards and do some Keith Richards shit. You know what I mean? Whatever. Whoever your hero is, imagine yourself as that person, and, you don't have to be the same person off stage as on stage. I mean, honestly, people would be bored to death if I was the same person. You know what I mean? I would just be sitting here playing guitar like this. You know what I mean? So, I had to figure that shit out right quick.
Yeah. Is it? Do you think it's an adjustment too, and like getting off the stage, like kind of going from that persona and kind of like the calm down afterwards of like kind of, you know, I'm sure you have your after show rituals and whatnot, but I'm sure there's got to be like some sort of adjustment that happens where you have to kind of like force yourself into like, all right, I'm back into it.
There is, and that takes a long time to kind of figure out that transition. It's never gotten quicker, I would say. Coming from the stage, my wind down time is still, you know, 4 or 5 hours of wind down time. It's impossible to get off stage trying to be a bigger version of yourself and then be like, oh, I have to get up early, so I should go to sleep right now. It just doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? It's like you're up because you've pumped yourself. You know, you've pumped yourself up. You know what I mean? You've kind of done that to yourself.
Yeah.
So then you have to like go back down into mellow mode. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all that's really important, you know, it is. And it took me a long time to figure out that transition between like getting to the stage took me a long time to figure out. Like,
right.
It's funny if my parents are around or even my wife or something, like I almost need to not be with them at least a good 45 minutes before the show so that the other version of myself can get to the stage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that usually means I'm backstage with the guys. And, you know, and we're goofing off and making each other laugh. And like, that helps me get to the stage, I would say. If I'm hanging out talking to my parents 5 minutes before the show, I just feel like I'm just there. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't help me get there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So push that shit out to be that guy that can get to the stage.
But dude, it's good that you're like so aware of that. I actually recently, a year ago, ran into a similar circumstance where we were doing a big recital, an end of the year performance. Our theme was the 90s, so we put bands together with the students.
Nice.
No Rain was one of the songs, of course, and it was epic. But for me, like, I had brought in some of my musician friends to help me prep for it, like get all the gear on stage. So like it was all of a sudden I'm like Rob from Rob's School of Music, but then I'm like Rob guy on a stage. I'm on a stage, I'm prepping for a show, but my students are around, and I was like Two-Face almost, where I was like business and maniac. And at the end, some of the kids were like, are you okay? And I'm like, who am I, you know?
Yeah, that's two different environments trying to meld into one. That's a tough thing to do. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying too about like the momentum. Like you need that momentum to get there. You can't just be expected to like a light switch, turn that on and like, all right. I mean, I'm sure you could if, you know, go into your head, but like, you know.
We usually try to clear the backstage area about an hour before we go on, just so that we can do that, kind of get ourselves there. And I've noticed certain people, like when we played Woodstock, I remember Henry Rollins did like 75 push-ups immediately, like right before he walked to the stage. So everyone has their own version of what it takes to do this to get to the stage, you know?
Absolutely. It's funny you bring up too is like how you guys were catapulted. So I was just watching the All I Can Say, which is amazing. I mean,
fantastic,
amazing visionaries. I mean, like Letters from a Porcupine, like just your vision in your records and in the visual context of things, it's incredible. And I was watching my wife, and she didn't realize like how like just several demos and then boom, here you go, guys, just boom, flung right into it. It's incredible to watch that and how you guys were able to adjust. I mean, that's crazy. Like you said, going from these tiny gigs to like, hey, we're sharing a stage with Guns N' Roses, one of, you know, by far one of the biggest bands.
Yeah.
Right, in the 90s, like just selling out arenas and just these massive concerts. And it's like, it's incredible that you guys were able to kind of do all that. I mean, you had some amazing tours too. I mean,
we had to really figure it out really quickly. We didn't have a whole lot of time to like, you know, play clubs and build it and then go to theaters and then get to the, you know, the little arena and then the big arena and then the stadium. We went from playing to 50 people to playing stadiums with Guns N' Roses right before our record was even released. So yeah, it was totally insane, you know. And when I look back on it, I realized just how insane it was. And but yeah, we had to figure it out. And I saw Shannon really develop quickly and figure it out. I mean, he had an instinct as a entertainer, just as a person. Shannon, I would say, you know, I'm talking about how I kind of have to be a slightly different person to get to the stage. Shannon was kind of the same guy at all times.
Yeah, you definitely get a feel for that.
Which made him, you know, exhausting at times because you were like, is there an off button that we can turn off? You're like, you know, you're in a van or something driving 12 hours to the next show and you're like, dude, can we just get a little less Shannon Hoon right now? You know, he kept us laughing and entertained. But I think for him, I think if you're an extrovert, maybe that transition is a whole lot easier, to get to the stage, back to that. And I think if you're an introvert, you got to figure out ways, to get yourself to be an extrovert because you're going to be on stage. Yeah. So Shannon had that instinctually, and I never really saw him have to really get in, he never really had to figure that out. He just was that guy at all times.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's I think one of the coolest things as a musician is the ability to, eat shit so often as you ride this wave, and to have the longevity that you've had, be it with Blind Melon and then Unified Theory, which I definitely want to touch on, and then the Immol Nation, and then the studio, and then back Blind Melon again. Like, where do you? This is a complex question, because to me, I think the answer is going to be the same answer you're going to say, but where do you muster up that fortitude to, if someone was like, hey, I want to go be a rock star, like, what headspace should they be in? Like, it's not all champagne and caviar, Well,
I think I never wanted to be a rock star. That, whatever, for me, it really was just the music. I know it sounds like super cliche, you know what I mean? But the truth is I never had aspirations of being a rock star. I mean, I wanted to make records for a living. For me, it was like, that was sort of the goal, all, the rock star stuff that happened. And don't get me wrong, it's fun as fuck. You know what I mean? I mean, you're lucky, when it's happening to you and you're on the cover of Rolling Stone and all those things are like, those things were so beyond even my dreams that they were really hard to digest at the time. Things happened so fast for Blind Melon. So those things were so hard to digest. I would say the greatest advice is don't want to be a rock star. You got to want to make something that moves somebody. You know what I mean? That's yes. I never, I had rock stars hanging on my walls and stuff, but like, that wasn't it for me. I was, I just wanted to write songs that touched people the way Sympathy for the Devil and Bob Dylan and Led Zeppelin and all those bands, I just wanted to give goosebumps, So for me, that was always my goal. The rock star stuff is, that was just all the extra stuff that happened that is fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think you that. I mean, between the studio, but also you hear it in the records. I mean, you're such a dynamic, virtuosic person. Like, you just learn different, like the mandolin, the harmonica. Like, you guys are constantly the Wurlitzer. I mean, there's just even the 4 songs you guys have released. There's so much there to unpack, and lyrically, like, you guys are amazing storytellers. I mean, I know you all write, so it's just like, how does one group of guys have so much talent? And you have one of the most. Graham is one of my, Glenn is one of my favorite drummers. Like,
I agree,
phenomenal. And I feel like we don't talk about him enough. I'm kind of like, who's your favorite drummer? I'm like, Glenn. Like, Glenn, who? I'm like,
yeah.
Like, just put on the first record. It's kind of like putting on the first Zeppelin album. You hear John Bonham come, you're like,
yeah,
it melts. You're like, what? And like, you go see him live, and you're just like, all of you guys. You watch all you guys live, and you're just incredible musicians and artists.
Yeah, thank you.
Watch that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Glenn is really the sound of Blind Melon. The truth is, before we had Glenn, we did have another drummer, and we didn't sound like the Blind Melon that you know today. It was Glenn that made it really sound like Blind Melon. Because quite honestly, Glenn doesn't really play like any modern drummers.
No,
he plays like Jim Gordon and more like those older guys from back in the day. And no one plays like Glenn. I mean, no one. He's just, you couldn't replace Glenn. The band would sound so drastically different and would feel castrated. Quite honestly, in my opinion, for me, Glenn is just the wild card. I just want him to go crazy. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. He really is. Yes.
He's a very lyrical drummer. He plays off the vocal, and he's super lyrical. He doesn't play a fill where you think he should play it. And he sounds like 10 people playing at one time, honestly. So yeah, Glenn's the secret weapon for sure.
Well, jumping off of that and, the virtuosity throughout the band, like, what is the writing process like? Does someone bring in an idea and it's like, Pete Townsend style, where it's a fully formed demo and you play this, and this, or is it fully collaborative, or does it change song to song?
Many different ways.
Yeah, I bet.
Many different ways. But I would say in the early days, like on the first record, we were in the same room together, jamming a lot. So a lot of those songs came out of sort of these jams. Obviously, Shannon brought in Change, which was fully formed. He didn't tell us what to play on it, but it was fully formed. No Rain was fully formed. Brad brought that in, fully formed. But most of the songs were, I would say, were a little more jam. Like, I brought in like, Drive and Paper Scratcher that were fully formed musical pieces that Shannon then wrote to, and everyone kind of came up with their parts. The process is a little different these days because we're not in the same room together anymore. I would say the songs are a lot more fully formed. When I write something, I try to finish it, and either Travis likes it and wants to sing my lyrics or not, and I always give him that option, and it's never an issue for me if he doesn't like it. I'm like, oh, it's cool. You have to deliver my lyrics, so either you're connecting with it or you're not, Cool. But within that, even when somebody brings in a fully formed song, I don't tell anyone what to play. You know what I mean? Even though my demo has the drums, the bass, my guitar on it, and sometimes my shitty vocal, and then I send it to Travis, and either he likes it or he doesn't. But part of the Blind Melon sound is having everybody contribute to it and have it be something that maybe you wouldn't have done. You know what I mean? We're not making solo records here. So, part of the process is letting go and letting someone else do something to your song that, and 9 times out of 10, it makes it better than you ever imagined. You know what I mean? Rogers comes up with guitar parts on something that I wrote that I would never imagine doing. And I'd like to think he would say the same thing about when he writes a song, because everyone's a writer. Hopefully I do the same thing to his song. I try to do something that gets it to the next level that he never would have thought about,
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
It's great you say that too. Like, everybody has their own part and you could hear that. And it's, to me, I still enjoy listening to albums in their entirety, but like with headphones on, noise canceling. Really, I mean, I love that. And you see that with like a lot of those great bands in the past. Zeppelin, you mentioned Stones earlier. Sure. You hear just such these nuances or how each person plays such an integral part. And I've always felt that way about you guys. Like when I put on my headphones, it's like, oh man, there's so much here. I was listening to some of those new songs today with the headphones on. I was like, there's just so many little things you could pick up on, whether it's drumming or, like you said, Roger's guitar playing or you're playing as well. And it's just, it's fun to listen to Nathan too, because this is the first record that you guys have done with Nathan. And man, I didn't realize, because I follow him on Instagram, I didn't realize like how talented that guy was. He plays guitar. Like, it's like
he's so annoyingly talented. I love him and hate him at the same time. Here's the truth: Nathan can play guitar better than Rogers and I both, and plays the bass better than all of us. He can sing better. I mean, like honestly, he's such a fucking MVP. It's incredible. He really is. I mean, honestly, his what am I trying to say? His overall musicianship far exceeds anybody in our band, I would say, and I lean on him. Sometimes I'm like, dude, can you send me the charts for Travis's new song? He's like, yeah, give me a minute. Sends me a chart. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. It's all like charted out, So yeah, no, Nathan has been, he's just incredible. We are so lucky to have him. And like I said, his musicianship is, he's really the best musician in the band.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow. Yeah. How did you guys meet him? Because it was awesome seeing him live and now hearing him on these recorded tracks. It's like, how did that kind of originate?
He was a friend of Travis's and they had worked together. So it just kind of felt like a natural progression. And those guys were buddies, and we just immediately loved Nathan. He just was like, he felt like family, like from day one, honestly. He's great. Yeah. So we're lucky. He's a great hang. And like I said, a super, super musician.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So that's another one of the intangibles that I feel like a lot of people coming up and wanting to be in bands, and again, longevity and the ability to master the elusive hang is something that can ruin. You could be the best guy on the planet, but if you can't hang and you're not cool and you're not humble, I think that ruins everything. And I've come across students along the way and musicians along the way who are on the wrong path, and I just try and just recently, actually, there was one in particular. I hope he sees this, and I had to crack down that you can't talk to people that way, and you can't not be cool.
No, you can't. And like as a producer, like I'm responsible for the vibe in the room, right. So I'm not going to take a risk on anybody who's going to ruin my vibe.
Yeah.
You know, I might be thinking of a musician and I'm like, wow, they are really great. But I'm like, you know what? Their vibe kind of fucking blows. And like, you know, it's hard enough to make records, you know, it's hard enough making records. So to have anybody that has any bullshit and brings anything into the studio, I just don't have any patience for it. I just really don't, you know what I mean? I really don't, you know? And I think people who are good people, you want to see those people win. And those people do great in the business. You know what I mean? Like, you know who's a great example? Dave Grohl is so goddamn cool. You know, you want to see that fucker win just because you're like, Jesus, that guy's just the nicest guy. People want to see people like that win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Compared to like someone who's like, oh, that guy's so cocky, he's a schmuck. Like, I don't want to see that guy win. I just don't. You know? So I think attitude is incredible. Like, you know, there's certain musicians I hire every time because I know they bring in an energy into the room that helps me make the session so much better.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Very important. Everything. How is the environment that you're in? How has that affected the energy? Like being in the desert, like what kind of drew you there, and how has that kind of affected either your process or other artists who've never been to the desert and like, whoa, I mean, it's got to be like a very jarring experience to be out there in the vast openness.
It really is. And what you're saying there is the key to the word. Something about the openness, like what I tell people is, and it's the truth, like I wrote more songs in Joshua Tree in 2 years than I did in LA for 20 years. And that's not an exaggeration. I truly mean it. When I first moved out here and I couldn't figure out what it was, I was like, God, what is it? Why am I like, I just felt like I was walking around my property and finding fully formed songs.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I found that one in my claim shack. It was almost, I didn't feel like I was writing them. They were like, you know, they were getting dropped off to me, you know, at least a good like 70%, you know what I mean? Or 75% would just kind of get dropped off and then I'd finish them up. And I realized that for the first time in like 30 years, I felt like I could hear myself think and just hear myself clearly in the desert. And it probably has to do with the fact that, you know, if I show you my view, I mean, I can just see as long as the eye wants to see. Let me see if I can just open up my door here. We go for a walk here. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
So there's something about this atmosphere, you know, and just something about just the open space, you know, it just, you know, there's something about that just made me be able to hear myself. There's nothing in my way. You know what I mean? And sometimes it just felt like the songs were coming in from the wind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, the way it looks out here absolutely has changed my life. And there's some weird magical quality about Joshua Tree. And I can't totally put it into words, but it has to do with the openness and the fact that I'm not living in a city and things are like in my face and like, you know what I mean? Like something about just the openness. And I'll say one more thing. I know it sounds kind of funny and almost kind of cheesy, but something about being connected to the nature changed my life. Like I grew up in the country in Pennsylvania and had the best childhood, spent all my time in the woods by myself. And then I moved to a city, you know, whether it was Seattle or Los Angeles or New Orleans. And I was just always around a lot of activity and a lot of things. Something about being here and I can look out and I just see a bunny go across or, you know what I mean? There's just coyotes here, snakes, you name it. Something about feeling like you're in this environment. And they were here first, by the way. So you're just a guest. You know what I mean? You're just a guest here. Yep. So I don't know. Something about that connection to like the planet and animals made me connect the songs in an easier way. It's hard for me to describe, but it's been magical here, I would say.
Dude, seeing that view, I got it right away. I literally had to wipe a tear out of my eye. That was
right?
Unreal.
Yeah, there's something about that. And then like, you know, you live in a city and you just feel like you're in a bubble in a city. Don't get me wrong. I love LA and I love cities, but being out here and looking at the sky, something about feeling like really small and insignificant in the universe.
Yeah.
Felt really good to me.
Yeah, it's humbling.
You know, you live in LA and you're like, you know, you just feel like, wow, it's LA. It's the most important. And it's like, I don't know, you have this weird sense of like, I don't know what it is, but being out here, you're like, man, you're nothing. You're just another you're like the damn rabbit here. You're all just trying to get along. You're all trying to get through the day.
Right.
And something about that humbled me and allowed me to write better songs is what I would say with this view.
Nice.
Were you always into like the production side? Like I see you got the NS10s there and this gorgeous console.
Yeah.
Like, how did that start?
Even from a very early age, like I had like that little 4-track on the cassette, you know, like the cassette 4-track, and I was obsessed with it. You could flip the tape backwards and do backwards stuff, which was blowing at the time. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I could sound like George Harrison, flipping around, you know, it was so exciting. So yeah, for me, the guitar and recording almost happened around the same time. Like I had the guitar for, you know, at 13, maybe for a couple years, but I immediately started recording. So all that happened at one time for me.
Wow, that's awesome. Was it just like acquiring gear over time? Like you had a commercial space for a bit, right? And
I still do. Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I always do. Yeah, this place gets rented out all the time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, without me. So which is great. So yeah, somewhere this is what happened in the 90s when we were lucky enough to make a bunch of money. I just, in my mind, I could either go buy a Porsche or I could go buy this console, which is about the same as a brand, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, when Blind Melon happened, I was so afraid of losing it, like I just didn't want a day job so bad, and I just wanted to make records forever. So when I made money, I thought, well, I could buy a fancy car or I could buy gear that will allow me to make records with or without a record company and with or without a budget forever.
Yeah,
and that's the choice that I made. You know, when we were selling tons of records, I was driving around a 20-year-old caravan, baby blue caravan, because this was what's important to me. Making records was important to me, not like looking cool in a fancy car.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, I was always into making records, and I just wanted to be able to do it forever, and I just didn't want to have a day job, I guess. You know.
So I watched. There was a studio tour video.
Yes.
On YouTube, and it was like, you know, going behind the curtain at the video store when you were a kid, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Like it was just magical, the equipment. So it's just so cool, and just the view behind you, man. I could stare at this forever. This may be my new background in my telephone.
Nice.
Yeah, the vibe in your studio is incredible. It feels so welcoming. Sometimes you look at a place and it's kind of sterile, and it's there to serve a purpose, in the sense that purpose is recording, get it done.
Yeah.
Yours doesn't have that feel. Yes, that is the object, right? Is to get something recorded, but like there's a whole other energy there, and part of its environment, part of the environment you created within that larger environment that you're talking about. That's so humbling, and that's really cool. You don't see that all the time, and I feel like that really makes it a special experience for yourself, but also for the artist that you're working with. It's just like, wow, what a memory.
I mean, that stuff's important to me. It's amazing how many people get that wrong within a studio. You know, for me, the way I think like an artist, to me, it's like I'm writing a song on my couch normally. So I don't want to go into a place that doesn't feel like I'm sitting on my couch making a record. Right. So I try to create an environment that just feels like a living room with a bunch of rad gear, as opposed to some bright lights and feeling like, and that's intimidating. I got to tell you, like in my early 20s, going into those big studios and just feeling that pressure, like, I don't know, it doesn't really work for me. To me, most people are writing a song in their bedroom, in their bed, on their couch.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, well, let's just make it feel like a wonderful living room. You know, the reason why the studio is called Fireside Sound is the first studio I had, not the first one, but the one I still have in Los Angeles, has a fireplace. So this was great to be able to, you know, build a fire and, you know, make a record. You know, it just felt like a living room. So
I love it.
I think that's important, and it blows my mind when people get that wrong. You walk into like a studio and you can tell it was like an investment or something, like somebody's just trying to make a business.
Yeah. Yes, it's not a hard equation. It really isn't, and it's got to come down to like some sort of business, you know, or just like, you know, we're just here to serve a purpose and that's it. And they leave one equation. It's not quantum physics, you know. It's very easy. Like recreate what has made everybody so excited when they first started out, whether it's in a garage, a basement, like you said,
exactly.
It's just like capture that energy, bottle it, and try to replicate it in some way.
That's important to me. That has always been important to me.
Yeah.
And I wish, I mean, it's, you know, to the three of us, this seems like so like duh, but you're so right. Like if you look up, like, you know, I watch a fair amount of studio tours on YouTube because, like I said, I can nerd out pretty hard, and they feel like you're in the Apple store. Like there's no vibe.
Yeah. I don't want that. To me, to me, the vibe is everything. You know, so I put that at the top of the list.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
Kind of going off of like the studio and everything. I know the last interview you had with Rob, you were mentioning like, you know, finishing up the album right when the pandemic, kind of like the onset of it, and like you guys were still recording, kind of finishing up. Now you guys are more heavy into like, you know, the mixing it. Like, how is that? How have you adapted to that? Are there parts of that you think may carry over in the future once like in a post pandemic world?
Yeah. Well, you know what? The past few years, even pre-COVID, just because of technology now and everyone has their own studio at home, and like, I mean, it's nothing new to be swapping files back and forth.
Right.
That has been the process the past many years, I would say. You know, working on the new Afghan Wigs record right now, and I'm only here with Greg and Patrick Keeler, who's his drummer. And but then we just, you know, ship stuff out to the bass player and his string player, and, you know, and that process has been, it's fine because I've been doing it. You know what I mean? I mean, now we're forced to do it, which is a bummer, and it's nice to get together and be in a room together. Right. But that part of it wasn't that much of a transition for me, because it's just the way things have been going on the past many years, you know, which is great because you can pick your favorite drummer and he might be playing on people's records. So you can send him your tracks and you can get Glenn Graham to play on your song, on your demo if you want. So, I mean, you know what I mean? It's pretty cool. Like, and Glenn does do that, and you know, a bunch, and so that those things have been incredible improvements, technology wise, and the fact that we can share files with one another is just amazing. I still love being in the room, especially with Blind Melon, and you know, I mean, there's still something that happens when you're all cracking each other up and in the room together. But you know what? I'm used to making records this way. It's just the way we've been doing it, even within Blind Melon, because Blind Melon never lives in the same city together. We haven't lived in the same city for 30 years. So we've always been, you know, sending stuff back and forth, you know.
Yeah.
Cool. So I see lots of gear. I don't see the guitars, so they must be somewhere else.
Over here. But my son, who's a great guitar player, hijacks quite a few of them. So sometimes you have to go in his bedroom to figure out what he's stolen. But I got some. Oh, it's a little dark. I got some guitar.
Whoa!
I got some guitars here.
Yeah.
And some guitars here.
Oh man!
I got my little drum set here. This is actually Glenn Graham's kick drum, and Glenn Graham's floor tom, and my friend from AWOL Nation's rack tom, Isaac Carpenter from AWOL Nation, loaned me that and the snare. And I think the hi-hats are from Dave Cruzen, the first drummer on the Pearl Jam.
Oh my God.
So basically, my drum set is, what will you give me for free? Basically. That's basically my drum set.
Wow, what an amazing conglomerate of different artists.
I think it was maybe a month after I got to speak with you last time I got to interview Dave Cruzen, and he was so cool.
He's the best, man. We've been buddies for a long time, you know. I love Dave so much. Any
chance of any Unified Theory stuff in the future?
You know what? You never know. I mean, you know, I talk to Chris all the time. We're all friends and stuff. So, you know, you never know. You never know.
Cool.
Yeah, I remember going to Tower Records when Tower Records was open and just kind of like didn't know what to kind of get. And I wandered over to the end of the alphabet, and I remember it was the cover that struck me with the bright blue and the orange jellyfish. And I was like,
yeah.
And then as soon as I turned over, I immediately noticed your face, and I was like, whoa. And then Brad, I was like, whoa, what is this? Oh my God. I don't know who this other guy is, but like, this has to be bought right now. And man, I remember riding to your house. I'm like, dude.
Yeah, it was a really fun band. It was I had a great time in that band. You know, we all had a really good we had a good run. It was great. But that album cover was shot at the Monterey Aquarium. We drove up there and kind of snuck some shots in the aquarium, and that's where that came from.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great cover, man.
Thanks.
Really caught me. That's why I grabbed it.
I had fun in that band, and for me, it was such a different thing than Blind Melon, and it's the very next thing I did after Blind Melon, you know?
Yeah.
I was used to always, kind of having to play around Rogers is kind of what we do. It's the sound of Blind Melon as well. We kind of play around one another, so to speak, you know, kind of. And so it was nice to feel free in a sense that I didn't have that, you know, I didn't have to worry about the other guy. I could just fill up the space more. So that was fun for me, just to kind of like, you know, try something different, you know. But I love playing with Rogers, and I don't play that way with anyone other than really Rogers. And I would actually say my son, honestly, we play in a similar, we can kind of noodle around each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What is your son?
He plays guitar. He's 14 and he just became obsessed with it, and he's becoming a killer guitar player.
Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's kind of scaring me. I think he's going to put me out of a job.
It's funny, dude. So I'm a guitar player as my main instrument, and my son wanted to take guitar lessons. And about 2 years ago, I was like, I'm going to give you piano lessons. We're going to set you up with a piano teacher. He's like, but I want to play guitar. I'm like, no, I play guitar. I need a piano player or drums or something else. But
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh, man.
It's cool, though.
So this is one of the questions coming in from the chat here. What was your youngest musical memory, or something that made you say, I want to do that?
I've told this story before. For me, and I'll never forget it. Like I lived in Pennsylvania at the time, and I don't really remember the age. I mean, maybe I was like 10 or 11. It was actually even before I was playing guitar. But we had one of those old intercoms that you used to be able to play music through your house. It was like the 70s. It was like, you know, high technology in the 70s, you know. But my parents had this intercom, and I'll never forget being on the patio outside, which we had an intercom, and Sympathy for the Devil came on. And it just felt like it changed me in 3 minutes or 4 minutes, however long the song is. Like something about everything about the song. It sounded so scary to me. I was so afraid of it, but it was a feeling that I just wanted to get closer to. Something about the energy of Sympathy for the Devil. It just felt like, I don't know, man. It's everything rock and roll is supposed to be. It's frightening.
Yeah.
It's ferocious. You know what I mean? It has bravado. It's just all those great, you know. And I didn't even know who it was. I just knew that song made me want to, whatever that feeling was, I wanted to create that the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It came over me like in such a wave, and I just was obsessed by that feeling. So I remember that defining moment for sure. And then around that same time, my mother was a folk guitar player, and you know, and those were my earliest memories, is watching her kind of play and sing at the same time, and seeing that magic. It looked like magic to me.
Yeah.
So, my mother was in a bluegrass band called the Marysville Sunday Night Pickers, and every Sunday night they would get together and jam. And this is like when I'm even younger, you know, like maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7, you know. So those are my earliest memories, is seeing all of them get together every Sunday. I remember just they would laugh a lot, and they'd play guitars. And there was a guy named Tom Faulkner, who was just an amazing guitar player. And I looked up to him, and he was, you know, I just remember being young and being like, it looked like magic to me, you know, and it is magic.
It is.
It still is magic to me. But even before you play guitar, it just looks like a magic trick, you know. So those are really my earliest memories, I would say.
Very cool. Very cool.
How that could be all consuming, and just how music, art, whatever form it is that touches you. It's amazing how it could just change vision. It could change your tone. It could change your mood. It
could change your path in life, man. You're heading this direction, and then you hear, you hear whatever, and then suddenly you're like, man, I'm chasing that the rest of my life.
Yep.
Right.
And I think that's kind of how and there's many bands in there that continued that feeling. Led Zeppelin, after I heard the Zeppelin song, at some point I get turned on to Zeppelin and the Kinks and all that stuff. And, you know, all that stuff was just, oh man, it made me feel something that I'd never felt before. And I wanted that power. I wanted to figure out how to create that to make somebody else feel that same way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's for sure.
Magical stuff.
It really is. It really is. That's one of my favorite things about, like, you know, I toured, and I've been a musician for well over half my life. One of my favorite things that I get to do weekly is turn someone on to something they've never heard.
It's the best.
And just watch them, like, when they hear, you know, Eddie Van Halen for the first time,
right?
Or something. It's like, and like, it takes you right back to that same feeling when you heard it for the first time.
It does. It does.
Cool.
I love that too. That's such a great feeling to be able to turn somebody on and see the change in them as they're hearing it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool. So Brian and I host another show at 9 p.m. Eastern time weekly, where we just review records and talk about records. And through that process, it's allowed us to kind of fall back on the nostalgia of, oh my God, dude, remember that one? Remember that song? I forgot that song. And then like in a public forum, you know, trying to make the world a bit smaller during this COVID stuff.
Sure.
And it's just really, it's magic. There's no other better word for it. It's magic.
Man. It's magic.
Yep.
I see another question here in the chat, but it's we discussed this the last time. Say, is there any unreleased Shannon fronted stuff in the vault?
There is, and it's coming out.
Right on. Yeah, I do remember you saying that. Yeah, that's exciting.
Stand by. I don't think I can talk about it yet, but we just partnered up with somebody who happens to be a good friend and a great company, and I just sent off the stuff actually last night, and it looks like it's in motion. So people are going to get to hear a bunch of really cool, you know, acoustic versions that have never been heard before, and all kinds of just goodies.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Man, that's awesome.
There's also, in addition to the Shannon sort of acoustic record, our old manager sent us, I don't even know how many DATs it was, but it was just like, I think my new manager said we could release a live show every week for like the next 50 years or something. It was something insane. It was like, we have so much live stuff. So I think we're doing a deal with somebody a separate deal where somebody will release a bunch of live stuff. So we have quite a bit in the archives, and some of it's like board tapes, which are not great, but some of them are better recordings. So we still have lots of really good stuff to release.
That's so exciting. Just, you know, as a fan, obviously that's incredibly exciting. As a musician, that's inspiring because it's as though you get to live on parallel planes. There's all this old material from what was, but then new stuff coming from what is.
Yeah.
And that's so cool to have both things happening at once.
Thanks. That will always be our career right now. You know what I mean? It's the same band, and we've had some members. It's all one big progression.
Yeah, man. Super cool.
Right? I mean,
do you have is there something you carry or wear during all of your performances? Like a crystal in your pocket or a scarf or?
That's a good question. I can't play without rings for some reason. I like the rings. Something about the weight on my right hand feels really good. I almost never play. I feel weird if I'm not playing. And then oddly enough, I usually have a licorice root. Something about, like, I noticed in my early days, I was making really weird, terrible rock faces. So I realized either I chew gum on stage so I don't make a weird rock face, or this is just licorice root, by the way. So I sometimes just have licorice root. Sometimes it just helps me kind of focus my mind and not make like faces as you're playing guitar, you know?
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. Interesting.
Brian, you got another one that we were talking about before?
I mean, trying to think what else we talked about. Oh, you know what's been fun is this year you guys did so many different. All of you, I think, pretty much all of you have done like Q&As, which has been fun. I know Travis has done a bunch of Q&As, but also kind of like a little mini concert, you know, where he's because I remember that's how I first heard Fence was he had played it on, I think it was a Facebook Live, and I was like, and it was just in my head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird, like the times that we live in, but like there's a lot of silver linings. I always try to find the silver linings. Otherwise, you get swallowed up by the darkness of it. And I feel like a lot of people have come together to do things. I mean, artists especially, you guys have just like, hey, this is what we're doing. We do Q&A, or like, come check out this.
Yeah.
Do you think you guys, even after all this, you think that you'll continue? Because it's almost like a smaller venue because like one of the things that Shannon said in all I could say is he's like, you know, no one came to Lafayette. Nobody. He's like, we live in one of those small towns where like Rolling. It didn't matter how big the band was. They didn't come to this town.
Yeah.
That kind of stinks, you know, but having these things that you guys have done, like these Q&As or like these Q&A/mini performances.
Yeah.
It must mean so much to someone that is like, wow, no one comes to this town and I got to drive 5 hours to, because when in the Chicago, there's tons of people from Indiana because the reality is like, it's not a big off, you know, and understandably.
Yeah.
Think you guys will do things more like that?
I think so. I think that's one of the, like, you know, there's going to be a bunch of new stuff moving forward that you go like, oh, that came from COVID, right?
Right.
And you know what I mean? You know, and I think those are some of the things that are going to, you know, continue. I'm always happy to hang and talk to people, and it's cool to connect with people right in their living rooms. So it's an amazing format. It really was. And if Blind Melon lived in the same city, we'd probably be doing more, you know, hey, performances at Fireside Sound, Blind Melon, but because we don't live in the same place, it's hard technically and all that sort of stuff, you know.
Right.
But this sort of stuff is how we get through it. And I don't think any of this stuff will go away. I think this is just, this is just moving forward, how we do it now, you know.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed it. I'm a fan, so I've tuned into, I was watching Aaron from AWOL Nation every day. When COVID first started, he had like an Instagram, not a talk show, but he was talking to people about, what they were going through and how they felt. And I was watching that every day. I was watching the Miley Cyrus Instagram thing every day at the beginning of COVID. And you know what I mean? Like,
it's
those are all new things that we didn't have before, and they're pretty rad,
They are, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something that, you guys have always been, the handful of times I've gotten to see you here in New York over the last, decade or so, and then how Brian mentioned seeing you in Chicago. And then I mentioned last time, by chance, I bought a Bob Bradshaw switching system from Rogers off eBay.
That's right.
And I didn't even know, and like he opened the door, I'm like, what?
That's
and then
right.
he invited me and he gave me tea. It was like,
That's funny.
You guys are so
accessible.
Like you make us all feel like we're part of the same family. And that's so cool, for a band to be so human in that way.
That's how we feel. I mean, honestly, we're regular people with maybe an extraordinary job, or I don't know how to describe it. We're, we're regular people. And like, that what's cool about the Blind Melon fan base is because it's been going on for so long. Like, these people are my family now. I don't even like calling them fans. It's like this one big Blind Melon family. And I've seen my fans have kids and then bring their kids to the show. And that's a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? It's great. We feel lucky to have fans like that bring their kid to the show. The next generation is coming to the shows now.
Yeah. It's
cool.
So cool. It's very cool.
That's cool.
So I'm going to do my rapid questions real fast just to make sure we get them in, and then we probably have time for a question or two after that. So it's a this or that kind of question.
Okay.
And you don't have to justify your answer, but you can if you want. And
okay.
It's all gear related stuff. I would always preface it with that, especially like say late October, early November, because people were afraid it was going to go down a road that we're not supposed to talk about. So gear, just gear.
Okay.
All right, humbucker or single coil?
Oh, you stumped me already. I play a Telecaster Custom. Hang on a second.
Yeah, show and tell time.
Here. Now, you asked me a question like that, and I'm going to say both because I've been playing Tele Customs my whole life, which have a single coil and a humbucker.
Fair enough.
In my world, I don't understand why everyone doesn't play this guitar, because I get a Les Paul pickup and I get a single coil. You know what I mean? Like, to me, this is why this has been my main guitar my whole career, is both. I don't have to pick. Both.
I think a Telecaster looks so cool with the humbucker and the neck. It's
a gorgeous guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. You know what I mean? To me, so I don't have to answer the question one or the other. I can say both. Is that fair?
Fair enough. Yes.
Amazing.
You're the only one who doesn't have to choose, because you literally.
I feel like that might be the right answer.
Right. It's like a math problem. He's like, he just showed his work, so we can't even argue.
Hunting. Who solved this problem?
That's funny. Okay, next question.
All right. So, well, see, now that I know, okay, some of these are not going to be as good anymore, but pretend. A Les Paul or a Strat?
Strat.
Okay. And then a Strat or Tele, it's going to be a Tele.
It's going to be a Tele.
Les Paul or SG?
SG. But I have to tell you, part of my answers are coming from a funny place. I can't play a Les Paul because they're too damn heavy, and I look like I'm playing my dad's guitar because I'm small. So to me, some of my guitar choices are based on, do I want to hold a guitar that feels like it's 35 pounds, a Les Paul? No. And it's like, I feel like I'm playing my dad's guitar. Like, they look like they're this big. So because I'm a small, always an SG, never a Les Paul. You know what I mean? So, I play parlor guitars, acoustic guitars, because they fit my body better. So anyway.
Dude, no, but that's so true. I was in a band, my buddy James, we play guitar in bands together, and I'm 6'1", and he's like 5'5", or he's a smaller guy. And I was a Les Paul guy for a long time, and he broke his string on his Strat and had to grab my backup Les Paul. Yeah. And he's like, I'm never doing that again. Look, burn the pictures. It just doesn't look right. Yeah.
I look like I'm playing like my dad's guitar. You know what I mean? Whenever I pick up a Les Paul. So.
All right. P bass or jazz bass?
I have a jazz bass. I'm gonna go jazz bass.
Cool. For acoustics, Martin or Taylor?
Martin all day long.
Right answer. For amps, and this is kind of like they do two different things, but pretend. Marshall or a Fender?
Fender.
Cool. And now some effect related questions. Delay or reverb?
I'm gonna say delay for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fuzz or overdrive?
I like the extremes. So for me, overdrive doesn't work for me as much as I like amp distortion that comes from an amp.
Mm-hmm.
That's always what I'm after. And then for a solo, I just want it to be the next extreme. So for me, I'd rather get distortion from my guitar amp without any pedal or anything. But when I go to solo, I'll just go like crazy fuzz. You know what I mean?
Cool. Cool.
Interesting.
Or nothing at all. Or nothing at all.
Phaser or chorus?
Phaser.
Yes, also the correct answer.
I have a Maestro phaser. It's one of the all-time great phasers. It's so thick. It's called Maestro. Anyway.
Oh, yes, yes. All right, some band questions. Beatles or Stones?
Oh, hell, that's impossible.
Right? I know. Every time you ask it, I'm like, come on, man.
That's almost unfair.
Mercury is what it is.
I mean, if I have to go to a desert island and I'm picking one band, I'm going to go with the Stones because there's just a longer career. But that wasn't really the question. But
that's a smart answer.
That's a good answer.
No one said that before. That's actually probably the best answer.
For me, if I'm going to an island and I'm only bringing one, like they had a longer career, and the difference between the early stuff to the latter, it's just a broader expanse because they were around longer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go Stones.
Okay. In the Beatles realm, would it be John or Paul?
Always John.
Okay.
It'd be George, quite honestly, but
I know. I'm thinking about putting. It's funny, especially with Brian here, because Brian on occasion can look like a young George. So that's
yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Zeppelin or Floyd?
That's super hard. But Zeppelin, like I started playing guitar. When I got the guitar, it was Jimmy Page. That was the guy that was on my wall. You know what I mean? So yeah, I got to go. But also obsessed with Pink Floyd. But Jimmy is the reason why I do open tunings, the reason why I picked up the mandolin, the reason why I've been chasing the sound of Friends. And that's the way my whole career I've been trying to write that fucking song. You know what I mean? I've been trying to write those two songs my whole career. And you can hear me trying in every band, by the way. That's CT trying to do Friends again, isn't he?
This close.
I'm this close. I'm still trying. I've been trying to write those two songs and Sympathy for the Devil probably my whole career. But anyway.
That's awesome. What's this one here? Okay, so if we're thinking in the Pink Floyd realm, would it be Dark Side or The Wall?
I'm gonna go The Wall. The Wall hit me really hard in my teens. When I'm around when that record comes out. You know what I mean? I'm in my teens when the record comes out in the '80s. So The Wall was a life-changing experience for me.
Cool.
Big time. Yeah.
I'm a Wall guy too. I think I've lost friends over that along the way, but I stand strong. The Wall.
Oh boy, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with The Wall for sure. Yeah, and Roger Waters for that matter. Yeah.
For the longest time, it was Dark Side for me because that's how I got introduced to them was Dark Side, and that was just amazing experience. Like, whoa,
it's a perfect record as well.
Yeah, vibing out in that in the dark. It's But then when James showed me The Wall on DVD, we were watching that. I was like, whoa, you know what?
Amazing.
Yeah.
The first Pink Floyd for me was actually Animals.
Really?
Yeah, we talked about that on Record Talk. No one talks about that album. It is a phenomenal album.
Dude, that one hit me so. That was my first introduction. I had a friend who had an older brother, and we went into the basement, smoked some weed, put on some headphones, and he put the Animals. And another one of those experiences where I was like, oh, I'm a different person from this point forward.
Yeah.
Hearing Animals and headphones for the very first time, honestly, changed my life.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm so glad you said that. No one talks about that album.
I know.
I'm talking about that. I love that album.
Oh, me too.
Beautiful. Well, those are the questions I have. That there's I don't know if this one's relevant, but in a Van Halen world, is it Hagar or Roth?
Oh, come on. It's always really rough. Let me tell you a story.
Yes.
In the late 80s, when me and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Heather, we were going to move to Los Angeles, we kept saying the same phrase. And it's a phrase that I learned from David Lee Roth. Like, you know, I read every interview he gave because there was no one better. To this day, he might be one of the all-time great people to do interviews. I mean, he's smarter than everybody, quicker witted, you know, charming, all the above. So I read everything David Lee Roth had to say. And he said one thing to me that once again changed my life. He said, if you're going to roll dice, roll giant dice. So for me, when I decided to leave Pennsylvania and move to Los Angeles to try to get a record deal, which sounded absurd, it was like, fuck it. We're going to roll giant dice. You know what I mean? I'm not going to move 20 minutes away from my family. I'm going to move 3,000 miles away. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm going to go for it. It was about really going for it in life in general. So David Lee Roth all day long.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
all day long.
Also the correct answer. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool, man. Well, those are my rapid questions.
Oh, I like them.
Man. Thanks.
They're fun, right? Yeah.
I had a few others that they were like movie references or things like that, and like I'd ask it to people, and they're just like, "What?"
Right. There's a couple newer artists that just didn't get it. It was a little ahead, I think.
Yeah.
Even like reference. What's the movie reference question? What do you mean?
Oh, I'm gonna blow it. We're doing so good now. See, do you ever see the movie Airheads?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So it was like I guess no one has seen it, but like me and my small circle, it was like Brendan Fraser, and they're trying to get a record deal, and they like break into a radio station, but there's a question where they're trying to infiltrate them in the radio station, and they're like vetting the record executive who's supposed to come in to make sure he's not a cop, and then the question is Lemmy or God, and then the answer is trick question. Lemmy is God. Which,
nice.
Which
right?
To me was hysterical, you know,
right.
but
yeah, that's good. That's a good one. good question. I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for hanging with us. I mean, you know, I showed you last time. I got the lyrics for Change tattooed inside my arm.
Amazing.
I got it at the same time with this guy right here. So we share that tattoo. So
that means a lot to me. I really appreciate that a lot.
We're lifelong fans, and I mean, ever since the Perk record, I immediately turned him on. So I was like, you gotta listen to this. I know, you know, a lot of people know No Rain, and they may not know from that. And once I turned on, everybody would just watch everybody just be like, whoa. I'm like, right?
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I really do. Appreciate it.
You guys do. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the love.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to new music from past and future. And,
yeah, man.
And, you know, when the world is safe, catching you guys out there doing shows and stuff.
Yes.
And, we can't wait. My goodness. I mean, geez, dude, I cannot wait to play, boy. I tell you, the shows are going to be crazy when we get back.
I can't wait.
All of them. You know what I mean? Like, everyone is so pent up and crazy right now. Like, it's going to feel so good to get out there and play. I'm telling you, it's going to be. And there's light at the end of the tunnel now. And it looks like next year, hopefully, we'll all be in a room together watching some great music.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Can't wait. And in the meantime, thank you for giving us your time and just making the world feel a bit smaller and sharing your world with us. It really means a lot.
Anytime for you guys, man. I'm happy to do it. I love hanging out and talking about music. I'm a fan too, so it's just fun to just sit and bullshit about gear and music. Right?
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. That just made my day.
Yeah,
man.
All right,
thank
brother.
you guys.
Be safe.
Take care.
Later.
Bye. Shut my computer. Bye. Bye.
That was incredible.